What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry, where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Joining me in this massive halftime snack is a sports and media leader with over 20 years of experience in the industry and unique expertise in the field. He's the CEO of SportsPro Media, which is the most prominent media and event business covering the business side of sports. SportsPro delivers some of the best content across diverse channels, including a printed magazine, newsletters, podcasts, conferences, articles, and more. Our guest is also an independent director of the British Volleyball Federation and host of the Stream Time podcast. I'm glad to introduce today, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Meacham. Nick, welcome to the Halftime Snacks. How are you, mate?
Cheers, mate. Very, very good. Good to be with you, and thank you for the lovely intro. Good to be able to have a bit of a chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for taking the invitation to join us. We're going to get into your background, SportsPro, and everything else. But right before that, I got to throw in an icebreaker to get us to talk, to get us to speak a little bit. And the one I prepared for you is a would you rather one. So here it goes. Would you rather have a terrible boss and a good job, or a good boss and a terrible job?
Oh, good question. I would think you'd have to go the good boss, because ultimately, I think in any environment, if you have a good boss, you can learn a lot, grow a lot, and even if you use that as an opportunity to develop yourself, it can set you up for finding a better opportunity in the future. If you go down the other lines, the risk is you don't really develop any of your experience, and you don't get any better at doing the job. I would say, though, on the flip side, on a practical sense, that anyone who works in the sports industry, people like to hire people who've been hired by good companies before. So yeah, sometimes just getting that name on the CV does open a lot more doors. So good question. I could definitely see a case for both of them if I think about it more and more.
Yeah, I think that most employees, or at least everyone on SportsPro, will agree that having a good boss is what matters, because it looks like they have an amazing one. Nick, but let's get into like your background and the things that you've done. Did some research and learned that you have a sports management degree, which is pretty unique, very specific. So maybe you want to talk more about how that came to be, how exactly you found sports to be so appealing to you, or what is it about sports that you find so appealing personally for you?
Well, I think it all starts with where I grew up, and that's Australia. And if anyone who knows Australians pretty well or knows the culture there, sport is really at the heart of everything. Particularly when I was growing up, you followed sport, and you followed every sport, and you followed what was going on. You followed all the athletes. And it was a time where Australia had loads of success professionally and across the globe. So sport was just at the heart and soul of everything that I consumed. And then I enjoyed watching and playing, and kind of felt like there was no real other option for me going through my high school years to go, I need to find a career in sports. Like, I'm really interested into that space. I'm good at playing sport, but not great. So, there's no career for me in the future. So why don't we look at doing something on the business side? And in Australia, there's opportunities at a variety of different universities to really study on the business side of sports. And you see more and more of those available globally these days. And so I took the opportunity to do a business degree. Initially, I majored in sports management and exercise science, and then realized I didn't really want to spend my time in labs doing tests on frogs, on musculoskeletal lab experiments. So I then honed in on the business side explicitly. So yeah, it was kind of almost felt like there wasn't really a choice for me growing up, that I had to go into the sports space because of the environment that I was around.
Yeah, I love that. The environment is such an important key in what and who we become. And you've became someone quite relevant in the industry, in one of the most relevant companies in media. And I believe, I mean, this is of course my personal opinion, but I believe that someone in your position has to be very consistent with delivering value, not only to the employees but also to the outside, to the partners, to the people you work with, to the people at the events. So one of the questions that I was wondering during my research is, how exactly do you keep yourself inspired or creative? How exactly do you source that motivation or inspiration to deliver quality time after time during your podcast and during your interviews and during your time at SportsPro? Like what do you do, or how do you keep yourself inspired to deliver creative work?
Yeah, good. Again, another good question, and it depends on where you want to take it. Like, and everyone's built differently, right? So, what inspires you and what makes you competitive and what makes you want to achieve success might be different to what inspires me. Like, some people really thrive off being competitive with others. So, whether it's beating your other competitors in the market, whether it's being the number one salesperson in the sales team, or getting the most reads on an article, or whatever it might be. Other people are more intrinsically challenged, like to challenge themselves intrinsically. So for me, I just want to make sure I'm getting better all the time. So I never want to just be happy with where we're at, because especially in the sports space and especially in media, the landscape's evolving so rapidly that if you try and do the same thing the same way a year later from the way you used to do it, you might be left behind. And so it's a really exciting time to be in the sports media world, where you've got to keep adapting to the changing consumption trends. 5 to 10 years ago, it was all about the written word. Then videos come into play and audio is playing a big role. And all these things weren't even on the radar only a few years ago. So it's a really exciting place to be. And therefore, you constantly got to be challenging yourself to go, hey, are we doing this the best way we can? And what other things could we do to be doing it better? So for me, it's always just about, I'm always asking questions of both myself and also the team to go, okay, how do we make whatever we're doing just that little bit better to provide more value to the audiences we talk to?
I want to maybe dive a little bit deeper on that element you said on how attention has changed, and the whole media in sports and how it's related to sports has changed. You've been in this business for a while, 20 years. It's a good time. I want to know exactly what are your takes on the attention economy, which I call it, which is really how people spend their attention day by day. How has that changed since you started? How was before? Maybe you can think about a couple of examples of how people were consuming media at the beginning of your career and how they're consuming it now. Like, what are some of the major shifts that you've seen so far?
Yeah, there's a lot to sort of dig into there, because there's come some different angles. But generally, I think where we're at now, and the attention economy is a great way to describe it, is we used to look at things, and we still do across the wider both media and sports landscape, of valuing content from a monetization perspective, like how much does it cost to read or consume that or subscribe to that piece of content. But actually, time or attention is the number one metric, in my view, on how you can measure the success of the content you're producing. And some of the conversations I've been having internally is like, okay, well, how do we define what piece of content, something we produce for our audience, how valuable is it? So if an article gets 1,000 reads, but a podcast gets 1,000 listens, how do you measure those two things against each other? If you then publish 1,000 views on a social post versus 1,000 engagements, like making sure you can actually quantify the value of those touch points and the time the audience spend with you engaging with your content and your brand. And so I definitely think, looking at everything that we do as a media business, you have to really look at that time spent and the direction of the conversation, i.e., is it just a very one way, or is there a two-way conversation you're having with those people? And then obviously the depth of the engagement, i.e., at an event, getting people to make the effort to come to your event and then consume content and then meet people. That's a real big commitment to someone's time. Again, so part of that intentional economy, that's the sort of the top of the food chain in terms of what we classify as top attention and engagement with our brand. So the attention space is evolving rapidly, and really nuanced now because of the divisions, from social media to newsletters to website to podcast to video to events, virtually and in person. they all provide a different way to measure performance and the value you're giving to the audience. So really, no one seems to, I'd say, have nailed that framework, but something we're spending a lot of time on to challenge ourselves to go, okay, well, is this piece of content we're doing valuable to us, or is it actually not really providing as much value as we think it is based on the metrics we might be using, might not be?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a lot of good key points there related to content as a strategy. I'm sure that you've seen so much that if in a specific quarter you're delivering better content, probably you're getting more subscribers, or to the newsletter or to the podcast, you're getting more listens, or you're actually getting more people to come to the events. So content as a strategy is something super interesting that I think about often, because I'm also a content creator, and I realize how improving the quality of the content actually, creates a better sense of engagement around the community of people that engages with your content. And this is something that, I want to get your take on this, Nick, but this is something that I think most companies don't really understand, because they think that maybe they have this idea, or think about this example. This startup or this company that is raising funds decides that it's a good idea to make a PR announcement instead of create content to at the same time announce that, a launch or announcement or capital fund raise or whatever it is. I feel like they're mostly focused on the old ways of spreading the idea or what happened through a PR announcement than, using content as a strategy. What's your take on around that? Have you seen this happening? Have you seen companies come to you guys and be like, we're only interested in PR, but they don't really value content as a strategy? Have you seen this happening?
Yeah, there's still a lot of learning and understanding and education needs to happen, whether it's in the more B2B space or through PR, to justify and value the value of that content that you're either producing yourself or being involved with. An easier example is even just social media, right? Like people measuring performance on that. Like we've had those conversations over the years of, okay, some platforms we were working with originally on analytics were just supplying likes and retweets, and that was your engagement metric. And actually I'm telling our team that is the one I don't want to pay any attention to. What I want to pay attention to is what's happening within that post. For example, and Twitter does provide that once you dig deeper into the analytics of, okay, have they actually clicked the link, which actually is the best piece of engagement if you're a media business trying to drive traffic to your owned and operated platforms. That is the number one objective more often than not. Have they clicked your profile? Have they done something else on that tweet or shared it or something, rather than just the traditional likes and retweets where people often measure success against, and that can just be so variable and not really give you any context as to what how much people valued your piece of content. For example, I've seen it before where a post that I might have shared might have had next to no likes or retweets, but the link of the article has had dozens and dozens of clicks. Okay, but the other post that we did had a number of likes and retweets, but the click-throughs were less than a handful. So in the eyes of the media business, or depending on how you look at it, you might say that one's performed really badly, and actually it's the best performing because it's done the objective that you want to do. So you really have to be able to look deep into the data and look away from some of those, let's call them vanilla metrics, because they don't give you any real sense. But we're all guilty of it because it's a behavioral thing to go, oh, it's getting these types of engagements, and that means it's working. And it might be, but it doesn't give you the real picture. It just gives you a pseudo picture of what it could be doing or what it couldn't be. And social is one of the hardest things to break down for a media business on how to drive real value for it. And I think that's the same for most businesses, really, is what unless you're in the real macro consumer space and you're trying to build mass audience, leveraging influencers and brands, it's really difficult to make social work for you.
And do you value quality of the content as top priority in SportsPro? Because when I go to SportsPro, I know that I'm gonna get some actual insights, some good articles and good content out of it. The newsletters that I've seen are high quality. Is this a priority for your team? Is this a priority for the strategy, quality over distribution every single day? Or how do you think about quality specifically?
Yeah, it is a big point for us. And I think you see across the wider media world, let alone sports media, the chase for views is pretty rampant. Chase for views, chase for clicks. And when we first started out, we were able to unlock opportunities to massively ramp up our views by changing the title on an article to be a little bit cute, so it makes it sound like it's more interesting and appealing to someone. But the value for our business being a B2B publisher, so we're trying to talk to people who work in the industry. We're not just talking to the consumer, the general fan. We want to talk to people who want to work in sports and want to learn more about the industry. That's pointless for us. Getting tens and tens of thousands of reads of an article where most of that audience might be just a general fan because it doesn't look like it's an article that's relevant to people in the business side, is not valuable to us. So we really focus on making sure that, does this piece of content actually help someone in their day-to-day? If it helps someone do their job in the sports industry, then that's where the value is most important for us.
I love it because I see a lot of similarities in the way I try to deliver content. I do think that it's way more important to have quality in people also that read your content. There's this tweet that I saw one time that says, suppose you have a newsletter about rockets, right? And you only have one subscriber, and that one subscriber is Elon Musk. Would that be worth it? Right? That's the whole thing. Right? There's quality in the people that read or consume your content, and you want to be looking for that, at least in my point of view. And it sounds like you guys are in the same channel. I want to switch over maybe to talk a little bit more about the digital transformation of sports, which is kind of much of what you guys cover and do. And I have this little game for you that we're gonna play, Nick. That it's called, since we're still in March, it's called the Sports Tech March Madness game. So essentially, you're going to choose your favorite tech trend that's taking sports by storm. I'm going to give you 2 options, and we're going to be eliminating. I choose 8. So it's a pretty simple game. You're going to like it. So the first one, 5G or esports, which one you like better?
So in terms of for this digital transformation of sports specifically, right?
Yeah.
5G, because I actually see esports sitting as a complementary but peripheral industry. I think sports is trying to hang on to esports because it does, it has some traits that are similar, but actually there's a load sports should be learning from esports on how it's run and operated and connects with fans. But 5G is going to be actually able to unlock loads of opportunity to help on remote production, improve connectivity for streaming platforms, and just improve the way that people engage with content, particularly live. And that's really how the industry is built around these days.
Okay. The next one, streaming versus wearables. What you got?
I mean, I'm a big streaming guy, so I'm going to say streaming. It's a topic that I spend a lot of time talking on our Stream Time podcast that we produce. That's the heart and soul of what we do talk about. So I'm going to say that wearables is definitely unlocking huge opportunities in the fitness space, but in terms of the sports industry itself, streaming is still only scratching the surface about as to what impact it's going to have in the way content is consumed in the industry.
Okay. Next one, data analytics versus augmented reality. What you got?
Data and analytics, I think, augmented reality is going to add value, but data analytics, the more we can learn about what our consumers want, the better job we can do running our businesses.
Okay, and the last one I have before we get to the next round is digital collectibles versus virtual reality.
I'm going to say digital collectibles because I think there's so many different ways, whether it's NFTs generally or just digital collectibles, can play such an important role in providing a different relationship with some of the fan base that they have. VR is still an unproven source, and a lot of people are talking in the industry are still skeptical to see how VR and metaverse is still going to be transformative to the way the way sports is consumed. It's going to be complementary, I think, at best for a while to come.
Yeah, I want to touch more on that in a second, right after we finish the March Madness. But the second round, which is the ones you picked, are 5G and streaming. What you got?
They're both kind of connected. So I would say I'm going to go with streaming just because that's still my bread and butter.
Well, I can already see a winner here, but let's finish it off. Data analytics versus collectibles. What you got?
Data analytics, still think that's still sitting at the heart and center of what everyone's trying to do these days.
Okay, and the final is analytics versus streaming. I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
No, you know what? I'm actually going to say data and analytics just because you knew what I was going to say was going to be streaming. No, but also because data and analytics sits across everything every organization is doing, right? Whether it's content, whether it's experiences, whether it's engagement through social, through owned and operated platforms, through broadcasting. And without that data, you're running blind. So it does sit at the heart and soul of everything that we're doing. It's only going to increase its role in the industry. So data analytics is probably front and center there.
So there you guys have it. The winner of the Sports Stick March Madness game, favorite tech trend to take sports by storm the next couple of years, data analytics. You heard it here on Halftime Snacks with Nick. Nick, and maybe touching a little bit more on that, because I think that is a very, very accurate way of seeing what your vision and the vision of SportsPro is for the industry in the next 5-10 years. How are you guys getting ready for that? How are you preparing for that change, for that transformation? What are some of the ideas that you have or things that you're currently doing to adapt yourself to that change?
Yeah, well, in terms of around digital transformation generally, being a media business, data actually sits really at the heart and center of that. So what every good media business, every good content business wants to do is get a complete picture of its audience, who's consuming its content. And particularly in the B2B space, where you're talking to directly to executives in the sports world, you want to make sure you're talking to the right people. So when you have touch points across podcasts, through video, virtual events, through the website, through apps, through newsletters, etc., you want to make sure that the data and insight you're getting around the individual customer is complete. You want to make sure you're getting a complete picture of how Nick's consuming A, B, and C, so you can serve him more of what's suitable to him. So really the biggest project I think every business that I speak to is either going through now or has gone through is creating that connected sort of single customer view, making sure all their assets, all their tools, all their channels are feeding into one central outlet or platform, so you can get a true sense of what your audience is and what they're interested in. And that's an area for us as a media business we're hugely focused on.
Yeah, and there was actually some interest around Twitter when I asked what people would ask you on a conversation. There was much interest around Web3. So I want to know your take on Web3. Like, how do you see it impacting the media industry, sports, and like how that mixes together? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Web3 is obviously still a kind of an emerging topic, although there's some pretty good signs about its role and what it's going to play. A lot of questions still to be answered in some aspects, but the obvious things are going to be, well, cryptocurrency will be, blockchain powered solutions like cryptocurrency will play a more prominent role in the way people sign up to things to make it easier for people to consume and therefore pay and transact for content opportunities. And obviously cryptocurrency is spending a lot of money in promotion. So actually as a revenue source for various media and sports businesses, it is fairly front and center. Web3 is obviously built a lot around community, and innately businesses like ours, which are built around building specific audience sets, things that can help promote and build out that community aspect, will be really, really important to us in the future. We want people to feel like they're part of the SportsPro community and not just using us as a platform to consume content, but they're really part of what we are trying to do here, which is trying to drive the transformation of the sports industry. So making sure that is going to be part of what we look at in the future is going to be really, really important. And then, NFTs are obviously developing, but their utility and their ability to be used across both physical and virtual is a really interesting development. So you see it in sports about how NFTs are being used, not just for the collectible side, but then also, okay, does that give me access to unique experiences, unique content, access to games and experiences, etc. And the same can happen in the space we work in. So pretty quickly, I'd say within the next year or two, we'll see Web3 style solutions playing more and more of a role in our business. And one final one that comes to mind, which is a pretty obvious one, but we run events. Ticketing is the most obvious solution for blockchain. So blockchain is the most obvious solution for the ticketing industry. And I innately think that that when we start looking at more ticketing for some of our events, we'll probably be looking at using blockchain solutions in the near future as well.
It is absolutely stunning to hear how well-rounded you are with so many ideas and sectors and insights around sports and media that it's going to take a while to digest all the good information that you shared with us today, Nick. I do appreciate that. But I can't live with asking you a more personal question. We do like to get to know the guests on a personal basis, on a professional basis. So the one I have for you, the one I want to ask you, that I want you to share, as what has been the best day of your life?
Oh, that is a tough question. Best day of my life. I mean, actually, no, it's not a tough question, because particularly if my wife's listening to this, it's a toss up between my wedding day and the birth of my first child. I have to really, somewhere between those two will be front and center of that. From a business and work perspective, it's a bit of a different ball game. I'm very hard to pick one, but I've had some pretty cool experiences going to a lot of cool sporting events over the years. But yeah, that's a tough one to dig into and answer. I hope my wife doesn't listen to me and my immediate hesitation there. She will definitely pull me up on that.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.